Hello and welcome to today's Partner Web Conference. This is Fast Track Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations at Enterprise Edition Tech Talk. Today's topic is Copy into Legal Entity. Presenting with us today from Microsoft, we have Mike Falkner, who is a Senior Program Manager. Now, it is my pleasure to hand you over. Mike, you now have the floor.
Right, thanks, Debbie. Welcome everybody to Copy into Legal Entity. This is a new feature that came out with Platform 11. So I'm Mike Falkner, and I'm a Senior Program Manager, and I'm actually a financials guy. So a lot of the flavor of this feature, we really spent a lot of time on making usability important. We took the technical side and merged it with kind of the usability side, and hopefully you'll enjoy this new feature for all the changes that we've made. What we're going to do is, first of all, this is kind of an extension of a tech talk that I did a little earlier, probably a couple, 3 months ago on configurations. And so what I want to do is I want to refresh that talk a little bit. I'm not going to do the whole deep dive into that talk. But the copy into legal entity is almost like feature number 2 that goes along with that. And so I'm going to kind of repeat a little bit about how the whole the whole data management framework was fixed, updated to make sure that the user interface is better, some of the features that we added, because those features feed into copy into legal entity. Without those features, copy into legal entity wouldn't have existed. And so what copy legal entity into legal entity is exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to copy the data from one legal entity into another legal entity. And we're going to use the data management framework, and we're going to use data entities to do that. And I'll explain I'll explain how it works, and then I'll also explain any kind of limitations that we had to add to it. So when we started out this adventure, we actually started working on a lot of these features back in January. So this is really kind of the completion of a plan we talked about for quite a long time. There was already data import and export in the data management framework. It needed some usability fixes or usability updates, but overall you could copy data, export it and import it. And there was also a separate feature called data sharing. It's in the common menu, underneath the common menu, where you can actually share certain tables. That was already there. If you haven't seen that feature, you can take a look underneath the common menu. What we added over the last period of time here is there's 2 different features, and the first one was released in the spring release. That was the configuration data packages, where you can actually export packages and then carry them over to a new instance and then re-import them back in. That's been out there since probably about the July timeframe, and we added hundreds of entities and sequenced them for you, and so that's already there. The new thing that we added here is copy legal entity. And so this is a copy of a legal entity inside the same instance. And so if you have a legal entity and you're creating a new one, you are able to take the parameters, reference, master data from that existing legal entity and copy it over into a new legal entity and then get started. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's really an extension of what we released in the spring to kind of finalize our feature set. The scope is parameters, number sequences, ledger, reference, and some limited master data. Actually, and for copy legal entity, it's pretty much anything that you can export and then import, you can copy. So if you can't export it or you can't import it, you won't expect that the copy will do anything better than that. We are actually using the existing export-import framework with some special performance enhancements to make sure that it goes fast. But again, if you can't export it or you can't import it, you can't copy it. On the other hand, if you can import it or export it, you can copy it. So that's what we did. So like I said, there's 2 things. There's configurations and there's copy legal entity. The way configurations works is we have these templates out there. We've actually pre-sequenced all of the data entities, so they will import in the right order for you. You don't have to know that stuff anymore. And those templates are provided inside the Dynamics 365 product. If you go into the templates form, I'll show you that. You can load these templates. We will be delivering those same templates in LCS probably in the next week or 2. That depends on if we get the feature finished, but we'll also have those templates so we can keep them more up to date. And we're adding new templates as we go. So for the configuration side of it, you simply add the entities and templates to a data project, do your mappings, you export it to a data package, a zip. You then go over to your new instance, you import that package, or you put that package on that instance and then you import it, and that's how you move configurations. That was our feature in the spring release. The differences between that and what we're doing with copy legal entity is we're still using the same data templates, we're still using data packages, we're still doing all that stuff. And I'll show you this, but there's a new button called copy into legal entity. And what happens is that you will go into your data package, and yeah, you'll still define the entities that you want to copy, but you'll also define the source and the destination of where you want to copy from and where you want to copy to. So you can copy from one source and you can copy to many destinations. And so for example, if you want to create 3 legal entities all at the same time, you can do that. You copy it from company number 1 and you want to copy it over to company 2, 3, and 4. And then so you set up the entities, you set up the templates, maps, all that good stuff. Select the entities you want to copy it to, copy it from, and then copy it into those new entities. The one thing we've done on the copy legal entity as well is that we have made the feature smart. So if you say the source is company ABCD, we actually pre-assign all the filtering required to make that data package smart enough to understand to only export stuff from company A, B, C, and D. In addition, we've added a lot of special functionality to make sure that the number sequence is copied correctly, and I'll talk about that when I get inside of the feature. So you'll get your number sequences, you'll get your data entities, and you'll only get the source legal entity copied over to your destination. We copy it from one legal entity and we copy it to many destinations, and we've got that optimized, and so it doesn't take the same amount of time. If you copied 1, it takes a certain amount of time. When you copy 2, you get the benefit of not having to actually do the export twice. You only have to do it once. So the more entities that you are creating, the faster it will go per entity. Before I move on, I'm going to actually do some demonstrations on how this stuff all looks. And before I'm going to do that, I'm going to see if there's any questions. Looks like there's no questions in the queue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen to demonstrating how this works. I'll make sure I log in because, alrighty. So we're going to do a quick overview of the feature that was in the spring release, just so I've got to kind of get the stage set, because we used some of that features to also make copy legal entity work out. You always had import and you've always had export. And if you look at the lower right-hand corner now, you've got copy into legal entity. In effect, copy into legal entity is an export and an import in one process. I always call it hot wiring, but we in effect hot wired the export and the import together, so that when you export, we literally transfer the data into the import staging tables, and it goes ahead and re-imports it. So it skips all that overhead of creating Excel spreadsheets and parsing up the data and all that stuff. It actually goes directly from export to import, as if, you know, almost like as if you had already imported it with spreadsheets. So copy into legal entity is where we will go. I'll show you that in a minute. The new workspace, this will become the workspace, the standard workspace here in a couple, in 1 or 2 releases. You'll see that we have, in the workspace, we've got different project categories and export types. You'll see a new export type here called copy into legal entity. So that's one of your new project names. And on the left-hand side, you'll also be able to filter on copy into legal entity, or filter on import, or filter on export. So the new workspace has the filtering. It also takes into consideration this copy into legal entity. So you have that type on the screen right now. And then over on the right-hand side, we've got the execution details area has been modified quite a bit now. So you've got a grid-based, again, the project type is shown here. I'll explain this in a minute, but in every time you copy a legal entity, you're exporting from one and you're importing into many. So you'll actually create one job per import, and I'll show you how that works as well. One thing that we've added also to the execution details is we've changed this screen to update it a little bit. It was a little harder to refresh, and so what we did is we've made it now a scrollable bar, and we've added filtering for you. So now you can filter on the errors. In this case, there weren't any errors, but you can filter on errors, and you can filter on what's not done yet, and you can filter on everything. So now the this execution details form has been modified quite a bit to give you this extra functionality. In addition, there's a flyout on the left. This is a list. We actually have a list of the data projects that go with this execution details. It looks pretty simple. In the old days, the execution summary form, you only had one data project that you were processing. Well, now with copy into legal entity, you'll be processing potentially many legal entities. So what we've done is we've modified this form so you'll actually be able to see all of the different copy jobs that you've run. So if you have 5 legal entities that you're creating, it'll show you all 5 projects over here on the left. So you can see, so they're individual imports, they're individually managed, but you'll see all of them on the same form, so you can click in between them back and forth. Alrighty, so that's the workspace. The other item that is related, we talked about this at the last Tech Talk, is templates. And the reason these are important is the templates are simply predefined list of data entities. And not only are they predefined, but they're predefined in the order that you want to import them into. So for example, you'll see execution level 1, 10, sequence 10, you'll see all those will go first. You'll see the ones that say 10 and 20 go next. There's a very detailed discussion on how this works. I'll show you some links at the end of the presentation. But if you go out to docs.microsoft.com and pick Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, and just click on the overview and type in configure. If you do that, you'll get all the documentation around all of this stuff that I'm showing you today, and it'll help you give you the detailed understanding of the sequencing, of why the sequencing is important. If you follow these sequences, your data will import correctly. It'll also copy to the legal entity correctly. If you don't have the sequencing correct, your copy won't work either. So again, it's an export to an import. So you want to make sure you import in the correct sequence. So the templates are important because we've done that work for you. You don't have to use the templates, but we've done all that work for you. So if you wanted to copy the financials, and the financials, for example, over to a new company and just the financials, we have a template for that. It's called financials. And if you create a copy into legal entity data package, add this template, it will copy all the financials over to that new legal entity. You don't have to know what to do. You just have to bring in the financials template. If you want to copy the supply chain, you can bring that over as well. Supply chain, same thing. You can do them both at the same time. You can bring financials and supply chain over. We have also added expense and project accounting. We just added retail. It'll be in one of the monthly updates. So I guess our point is add the templates that you need to copy your legal entity. You don't have to start from scratch. So so use these templates as your copying mechanism. If the templates aren't set up in your system already, you push the load templates button up here, load default templates, and you get a list, and you can pick which templates you want to load. And as we add new templates for different monthly updates, you'll see new templates starting to show up in here. Plus we'll be adding templates through LCS. But the templates are critical because if you're trying to copy a legal entity, there are about 200 entities in financials. There's a couple hundred entities in supply chain management. There's a lot of entities in expense and project accounting. So again, there's a lot of entities out there. So instead of you having to figure out what the order is, let us do that for you, and you can go ahead and use these templates. The last thing I want to show you before we get started, in the framework parameters, there's 2 things. One, again, the stuff I showed you will become the default view here pretty soon, but until then, you'll want to set your default import-export parameters to enhanced view, and that way you'll get everything you see here, otherwise you won't see it. The second thing is when you're copying legal entities, we let you copy as many as you want. So if you want to make 100 of them, you can. That's going to take a lot of time. So what we've built in is we've built in a limiter. It's the maximum number of legal entities that can be copied into. We default it to 5. You can make it 1,000,000 if you want, but we default it to 5 just to make sure people don't accidentally get themselves in trouble. If you want to change this to 100, go ahead and change it to 100. But we take a look at this parameter and artificially stop you from copying more than that many legal entities, just to make sure you don't accidentally copy 100. Just so you understand that. So I'm going to show you the different kinds of jobs because again, they're related. An export job is simply a data package with a bunch of entities in it. And in the data package, you'll see that there's just the title, and then there's a list of entities, and there's 4 ways to add entities. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to take an export job like this, and I'm going to create another export job because it's the same philosophy for copy, but I want to show you how to do it in export first. So we create a new export job. There's 4 ways of adding information to these projects. You can add an entity. Let's say, for example, vendor groups. It'll search the list. You pick the vendor group. You pick the target format, Excel, and you say add. So that's the way to add a single entity. Notice that none of the sequencing is just defaulted. You're not taking any advantage of anything that we've done pre-sequencing it, but at least you can add it if you want to. You can do it that way. Add multiple allows you to do more filtering. We've added application module, columns, tags, and entity categories to help you find stuff. So if I wanted to find everything in I want to find a reason code and I can't remember how it works, I just hit reason and tab off of it. And here's everything that has the word reason in it. If I want the customer reasons and maybe I want the financial reasons, I can just target to Excel and say add selected. And now that added those entities as well. So that's the second way you can add entities. But again, notice the sequencing is just defaulted when you add those entities. If you want to take advantage of a package you already have out there, you can use the upload format. So you go out here and you say, I'll go a little bit slower here. You say add a file. And you simply say upload. The system is smart enough to realize that a zip file means a package, an Excel spreadsheet is an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV is a CSV. It's smart enough to know that now. So you pick customer groups, Excel spreadsheet, and it gives you a little message now that says that it's loading. It's actually parsing up the file and making sure it understands what kind of data is in there. And then it added it down below as a customer group right here. The last way to add to a project is a template. And that's the ones I showed you. You say add template and you go out here to like any of our templates. There's financials and supply chain. System and shared you would use for importing and exporting, but you probably wouldn't use it for copy company because it's all the global stuff. But if I pick something simple like bank and took target format of Excel, what it's going to do now is it's going to bring in all of those entities from that template into this data project. And it allows you then to, it gives you a couple warnings for memos, but that's nothing to worry about. It brought in that entire template, and also notice it brought in all the sequencing for you as well. So although you have all the different methods I showed you, you might want to consider just using the templates to get the sequencing set up, and then that way, and you bring them all in and then maybe delete them if you don't need them. Okay, and then another feature that we added for this release is this disable. We already had disable out here. This column right here is called disable. We already had it so that if you click on disable, it won't import or export that entity, but it still stays in your project. And so then you can be like, if you got them all imported except 2 of them, you could click all of them except the last 2 and redo it again. It's hard to click a lot of them, so what we did instead is we said disable. We added a disable all command and an enable all command, and then that allows you to do all of them at once, or disable them all at once, or enable them all at once. So if everything worked except one of them, I want to redo everything else, I could disable all of them and then enable this one, and now I can go ahead and do my export, and it would only export the one that has the checkbox gone. So that was added as well in the latest release. And so that's how an export job works. An import job looks very much the same. You just simply add entities and you import them. So let's now get to we'll get to copy legal entity now. That's what you've been waiting for. So copy into legal entity is kind of the combination of the ones I just showed you. A couple changes. So if you look at a copy into legal entity job, the first thing you'll see that's different is over here on the right-hand side is the source legal entity. When you create a new copy into legal entity job, it defaults the source to the company that you're in. You can change it to be whatever you want, but once you've locked in the source legal entity, we don't let you change it because there's a lot of stuff going on down below in the entity area that we're doing once you pick that legal entity. So if you do set up the source and you don't like what you set up, you will have to delete the project. But what we're allowing you to do is, even though I might be in USMF right now, I could have started with my source legal entity being in USRT or some other company. The point of it is this project is independent of the company that you're in. It'll default the source legal entity at the first, and then you can change it. And then once you start working on the rest of the project, we lock it in, because the reason is down below the entities that you're loading, when you load an entity, we automatically apply a filter that says only filter out the data in that source legal entity. So if you start changing that source legal entity, we'd have to change all the filters, and we could mess things up because you might have changed a few things. The point of it is we want to make sure that everything goes right. So we lock in that source legal entity once you start editing the project. Notice the difference between the other projects is we have a new tab called Destination Legal Entities. There's two things going on in here. Number one, copy number sequences. So it's optional for you, but when you copy a number sequence, there's some extra stuff in the number sequence table that makes it a little bit hard to do that just on your own. And a lot of partners have figured that out, and it was one of the biggest complaints that we had was that, hey, it's just kind of a little harder to copy number sequences than it is most everything else. So we've got a hidden feature underneath the covers that if you turn on copy number sequences, we will automatically not only filter out the ones that are needed that come from USMF to your new destination, we'll change the legal entity in the new destination for the new number sequences. And we'll catch all the different columns. There's a scope type, and there's a few other things going on in there. There's a lot of stuff going on in number sequences. And so what we did is we went through, we will fix number sequences to match your destination legal entity for you. We'll take care of all that trouble for you. So you don't have to do it, but if you do, we automatically add these two entities down below called number sequence references and codes. We automatically add those, and we automatically add those using the levels and sequences that we put into the templates. So you'll always want to make sure these two entities go first. And the reason we add them with these two numbers is that we want to make them go first with our templates. Also, you'll see this thing that says reset to smallest value. That's optional as well. Sometimes if you're using company specifically number sequences, you want to reset that smallest value. So instead of starting at 27 in USMF, and then when you copied it, it's still starting at 27, you might want to say, I want to start back at 1. Or whatever the smallest value is. We'll reset it for you. But again, that's optional. But the meat of the feature is right here in this destination legal entities. Here is where you specify which legal entities you're going to copy into. It selects from the existing list. You can't copy under yourself, but you can copy anything else. You can pick 2 or 3 or 4, however you want to do it. You can add these selected. And when you click on those, it adds them to this list. Again, if you haven't changed that parameter back that I showed you, it'll stop at 5. But it continually adds these companies. These companies will be the destination for this source. So I'm copying from USMF up here. I'm copying to USAA and USBB. You can use this remove feature to take them out. And this feature right here, create legal entities, just showed up in the, I think it was app monthly update number 4. So if you got platform 11, but you haven't got one of the app monthly updates, you won't see this create legal entities yet. You'll just see the select and the remove. In that case, what you would do then is if you want a new legal entity, you'll have to go create them ahead of time first, or import them. That's how I would do it. Go ahead and import the legal entities, the ones you want to add, and then you can select them here. If you get the new monthly update, I think it was update 4. Create legal entity literally gives you that first screen that you see in the legal entity form and allows you to create one at a time here right from the form, so you don't have to leave and go do it. If you have a lot of them, I'd still suggest maybe setting up a quick spreadsheet for importing the legal entities. Maybe if you had 10 of them to do, you could type them all in here real quick, or you could create an Excel spreadsheet with 10 legal entities and import it real quick. Either way, whatever saves you the most time. The select list goes off the list of entities that already exist. If you already have a legal entity set up, in fact, and you want to just kind of do a couple updates, this is not master data management, but if you want to do a couple updates, you can still copy into an existing legal entity that has data in it. Just remember, if you can export it and you can import it, it'll work. But if you can't import it just regular through the import function, the copy function won't do any different. It uses the same exact functionality. But if you needed to update a couple things you want to do real quick, you could also use this to kind of update some of your data. But don't think of it as master data management. It is not that yet. That's another issue. That's another feature. So you create your legal entities somewhere. You can do it from here now, or you can do it by importing. You then select the ones you want. I've got 2 of them in this case. Once you've done all that, now you add entities down below. I did a little short one just to show it to you, but in effect, what you would do down below is we automatically add these 2 number sequence codes for you. You then would say, what I would recommend is you would say add template, and then you would go out down here and find the financials, and I would add the financials, and then I would go ahead and do the same thing for supply chain if that's what you have. The nice thing is if you started with financials and copied them over there and you're done, you can come back, do another project and copy supply chain later. That's the nice thing about it. You can do it all at once, or you can do it later. You pick the entities that you want to copy. If all you care about is payment terms and discounts, for example, that's all you care about, then just use those entities. But if you want the entire system, use all the entities. Over here on the right hand side, you can see the filter flag is set. That any entity that has a legal entity column in it, that actually goes to the trouble of having a legal entity column in it, it will apply a filter over here. So number sequences, for example, if you tried to copy all number sequences, that's not the way, you don't want to do that. So we've applied a filter in here that says for number sequences from USMF. If you have another entity in here that has a global stripe on it, or has a legal entity stripe on it, it will apply a filter over here. You'll see a pencil, which means edited, and you'll see a list over here of the filtered legal entities, or the filtered entities, that will then copy over to the new legal entities. Other than that, the form is the same form. You are copying from behind the scenes. You are exporting directly into the import staging tables. It's as if you took this legal entity and imported it ahead of time, and you were ready to push the import button. That's really what you're doing right now. And then you go up here and say copy into legal entity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens after you do that in the interest of time. You see over here, there's 2 import jobs. There's a USAA and a USBB. What goes on is it exports once, and it creates as many legal entity imports as you selected. In my case, I selected 2 legal entities, so it created 2 legal entity import jobs. And so they're treated like import jobs, so they're unique, they're separated. So if something goes wrong with one of them but not the other one, you can clean up the one just like you were doing a regular import job. You don't have to do the whole thing over again. You don't have to repeat the whole process. So if I open up the first one, the USAA one that I showed, notice on the left-hand side now, you have 2 different execution details. One is for USAA. You see it says copy to USAA. And then this one down here, copy to USBB. And notice up above, it tells you that it's changing companies. We're actually changing the company context to make sure it imports into the right place. And so you can check and see how your projects are doing. Notice that these all succeeded, and it was all done. So again, it's all the same functionality. It's the same export. It's the same import. It's the same execution screens. It's all the same stuff. Think about it as an export directly into an import. The only tweaks we have here is, besides the nice new user interface we put on the execution summary, we've added this extra over here that allows you to see all your legal entities and how they're executing. So you can see all 5 or 6 of them. And again, if you are in this job up here, it's separate. If you're in this job, it's separate. And if you're in another job, it's separate. Timing wise, people probably ask that question a lot. It takes, we were doing our demo data and we were doing it on a 1 box. And so these times aren't official. These times aren't benchmarks. I'm just going to give you some timing. We took all the demo data from USMF and we added it. We created a single company, and we did all the financials. We did all the supply chain, we did all the parts, the customers, vendors, and we did all that stuff. And it took us about 50 minutes to do it on a 1 box, a single machine that doesn't have any, that was just a demo test machine. However, when we did 2 or 3 or 4 legal entities, it took 30 minutes to do the export, and then it consistently took less time to do each of the imports. So the 20 minutes you got back, actually a little bit of time there, but we got 20 minutes on the first import, 20 minutes on the second import, 20 minutes on the third import. So in effect, it scaled. So when we did 5 illegal entities, it literally took half the time to do 5 that it would have taken to do those 5 separately. So the more legal entities you do, the more it'll scale. And it also depends on your machine. Again, we were using a development 1 box, so it was a single server with everything on it. if you have more beefier machines, you probably get some scale on it. So that's really the copy legal entity feature. Again, it's pieces and parts of all the other stuff that we had before. I'm going to check with Brian here, see if we got any open questions. What was the one question we wanted?
When are the demo data packages that we're creating going to be out there?
It's a little bit different. Okay, the question was, when are the demo data packages that we are creating be available? Okay, so some of you guys aren't probably aware that we are actually moving a lot of the demo data, a subset of the demo data, not all of it, into data packages that will be you'll be able to import in the data management framework. We're going to release some of that in the fall release. We'll release it through LCS. You'll go to the share. You go into your shared, the global asset library, the shared global asset library. We actually be posting them up there, and we'll name them in a certain way that you can actually see them. We'll have a system and shared. We'll have probably a U.S. company, an EU, a non-U.S. U.S. company, a non-U.S. company, and a couple process industries companies. We're not done yet, so I can't tell you exactly, but it'll probably be in the fall release. We'll have demo data out there sometime later this year, and you'll be able to use it in here, and then you'll actually be able to use it to copy companies, so you can do that as well.
Hey, Mike, while you're waiting to answer the next question, I would like to call the audience's attention to the survey link that I just posted in the messages window. Your feedback is very valuable to us. We appreciate you taking a moment to fill it out. Click the link or copy paste it to a new browser. Enter your email. You'll be taken into the survey. There's 5 questions, and our voting scale is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best score possible. And then be sure to click on the submit button at the bottom to ensure that your feedback has been received. And Mike, back to you for more questions.
Okay, we got a question here. It says, can you please repeat where to find the templates or which PU and app update is related to having the templates available? Okay, the templates are available in the spring release. The trick is you have to be in the enhanced view to see them. So when you go into the framework's parameters, make sure you change the defaults to enhanced view. At the top of most every data management form as well, you'll see standard view and enhanced view. Make sure you change it to enhanced view. The easiest way is to go to the framework's parameter and get in the enhanced view. That's the first thing. The templates, which are in the templates form, if you are in the enhanced view, you will see this load default templates. That the menu is not available in the standard view. The standard view looks like this, which it's just the old view we had. And we don't have, so you have to be in the enhanced view because there's a lot of stuff going on there. You have to be in the enhanced view. Oh, there it is. It wasn't, I'm sorry. It says load default templates in both. But point of it is you load default templates in the templates form. The templates were available in the spring release. So platform, I think it was platform 8, platform 8, I think is what they were in. They're in that release. We constantly update them in monthly updates, and so I think retail came out in monthly update 3, I think it was. We've got advanced warehouse and transportation probably coming out in the fall release. We're just finishing up that one. We've got a couple changes to some of the templates as we get more experience with users and our own. We actually test on customer data as well, and we find little tweaks. We tweak them. Those come out in the monthly updates. But the platform 8 is the first platform that supported templates, and then the monthly updates 3 and 4 have a couple new changes, and then fall release will have a bunch more changes in there. We release them as we go, and then we're going to start releasing them in LCS as well, and they will load. It'll be like pushing this button. It's the same. It'll be the same thing, but from LCS, you'll push the button and it'll load the templates into your system for you. Okay, another question. Do we have the option to select which legal entity has to be copied first and so on in a sequence? Let's go back to that form. You're only going to be able to copy. Let's go back in the form here. You pick a source. So if I'll make a new one here, you pick a source, and you can pick any source you want. And you only get one source, and so there's no order in that respect. You pick your source, and you're off you go, right? So my source is going to be like, let's say USRT, and then down here. Down here, when you say select, you can pick, I'm just going to say US here. Oops. You pick which one. It's going to come in alphabetic. So you can't, I mean, it's going to kick in alphabetic. It's going to run them all. It's going to run them all simultaneously. It actually does all the exports first, then it does all the imports first, next, and like that. And it'll probably do it alphabetic. I mean, there is no specific, like you can't say I want USDD first and then USCC next. You can't really say that. It'll probably just go out. It just goes alphabetic. I think it goes as. A good question. I think it goes in the order that you selected them. Let me try. Let me see. I can just get rid of them and try it again. So we'll try. We'll say I'll go farther one down. I'll add that one first, and then I'll add another one like that. Nope, it sorts them alphabetically. So they're going to go alphabetic. I'm not sure there's a reason that would be a problem, except maybe some intercompany stuff. But we did not include the intercompany stuff in the templates. So for now, you'd have to set those up after you're done copying. Okay, is that
all four of these?
Okay. I think system tables are contained in some locked model, such as application, foundation, or platform. Are templates renewed with platform updates or monthly updates in LCS? Does copy, okay, so we'll do the first one. So the system tables, the platform update, so we update those the templates, platform update package. I'm not sure I understand that question. Are templates, okay, so the templates, we retest them for every update. So the templates we come out with, if you load the spring release, those templates match the spring release. If you load monthly update 4, the templates match that update. In other words, we've tweaked them and we've rerun them in that environment to make sure that they run okay. So you shouldn't have any trouble if you take updates on monthly updates. They should all work. That we do test them that way. Does copy legal into legal entity feature available in PU 11? Yes, that's when it is. Platform update 11 is where this feature is. The one that says create legal entities, that comes into an application update. It's a technical detail. That feature lives in the application and everything else lives in the foundation. The feature for creating legal entities inside this form is in app update. I think it's app update 3 or 4. I'm sorry, I don't remember right now. 3 or 4. So otherwise, you'll have to create the new legal entities manually. Is it going to work if it is a legal entity outside the 36 supported countries? Okay, so does it support outside the 36 supported countries? Again, if you can export it and you can re-import it, it'll work. So if you can't import it, this won't work either. So we didn't do anything specific. Well, all we did is we said we hot-wired export into import. And so, if the import would fail, if you're trying to copy from the US to some other country and you're trying to copy 1099s, it's going to fail because 1099s don't work in another country. It pays attention to the country that you're in. It actually pays attention to the country context that you're in and tries to import just like it would any other time in that country context of that company. So if you're exporting from a legal entity and then you're importing into the staging tables, is just like you took a package from some country, any country, and tried to import it into a country that has a certain set of entities. So you just got to make sure that stuff, we didn't do anything special there. We still pay attention to the country context on the import. Was there another question? If the source company number sequence is already used and running to a certain number, can I copy the source company number sequence and reset all the sequences into 1? Yeah, so that's the point of this copy number sequence over here on the left. If I say no, we won't copy any number sequences over there. We just leave it alone. So if you already got a sys company set up with your number sequences, we just leave it alone if you'd say no. If you say yes, what we do, notice down below, we added these two number sequences for you, but we also defaulted that they would get reset to the smallest value, not to 1, but to the smallest value that you've decided. So if your number sequence has smallest value at 1,000, it'll be set to 1,000. If smallest value is 1, it'll set to 1. If you don't want to do that, turn it off. But if you want to do that, go ahead and leave it on. It will copy the number sequence and it will reset it to the smallest value of that number sequence. So the smallest value could be 1 or 1,000,000, but whatever that smallest value is, we'll reset it. Okay, we're looking for other questions. Can create a recurring data job, how it helps copy in the...
Is there a question about incremental before? I said no.
Okay, so two questions. One, recurring jobs. Yeah, you can do a recurring job. This runs in batch. It can be staged. We did not put any limiters on it. If you can export it, import it, it does whatever batch jobs the export and import does. It's works there as well. So you can use any of that stuff. And everybody I know that I talk to says, "Hey, this is master data management all over again." No, it is not. Don't think of it that way. We never said it would be, but we didn't put any limiters on it. We want you to use it to the best use you can, but just remember, if you can't export it and import it, you can't copy it. So just keep that in mind. And then what was the other question?
There's an incremental question.
Oh, incremental. Okay. So we've had this come up once before. We hid the column for incremental because we do a full copy because we thought about it that way. However, incremental is behind the scenes. It's here. If you everything's set to full. If you want to use incremental copy, you can. You'll have to use the personalization menu and expose the column that talks about incremental versus. So if I go back, I'll go back over to show you what the column is. If you're in an export project, and you see over here on the right-hand side, you've got the default refresh type. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name. Default refresh type. And so we want you to do a full push. If you go over to that form and you personalize it and expose that column, you can do incremental. But we really, that's why we hit it. We thought about everybody pretty much doing a full push, but you can do incremental if you need to.
Was it 11, right?
What platform is it? Yes, it's in platform 11. You'll see it's available now. We're actually getting ready to almost ship platform 12. So 11's been available for a couple weeks now. Again, the only thing you won't see if you just take platform 11 in the copy legal entity job, you won't see this create new legal entity thing. You won't see that until you take, I think it's plat update 3 or monthly update 3 or 4. I can't remember. We made it. I should have written it down, but we made it into that one. You won't see that, this extra feature right here to create new legal entities. You won't see that unless you take that platform up monthly update. So until you do that, you just go ahead and create legal entities from scratch yourself, or you import them. I have actually got a spreadsheet out here that has legal entities in it, and if you want to do a quick legal entity import, it only takes 3 columns. That's a quick legal entity import, and that's all it takes to get it going. So again, if you only have platform 11 and you don't have that monthly update, you won't see this one menu right here. Okay, do we have any other questions here? Okay, got some more questions. When exporting job, after a certain time, I saw the job status keep executing, but I see the data warehouse. There's no data exporting. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand that question. Okay, I'm going to have to go on another question. Is it possible to note from which platform application update the copy into legal entity is available? I think I just mentioned that already. I lost a part related to filter field related to number sequences. What's the capability of that value? Okay, number sequences. Somebody wanted a little bit more information. If you look at the details behind a number sequence has a column that's, what legal entity is it in? So number sequences can be global, but they can be legal entity specific. They can be company specific. They can be, there's a lot of stuff going on in the type of number sequence is controlled inside the number sequence. You control what the scope of it is. Is it global or is it legal entity specific? You really control the scope of it. If you're copying a legal entity from one to another, if it's global, you don't need to copy your number sequence because the number sequence is global. But if you have a number sequence in your company that is company specific, we allow you to copy those company specific number sequences over to the new legal entity. The trouble with the number sequence column in the number sequence design is that it's got a lot more complication in it. It's got different columns that help you do define what legal entity it's in and what the where the sequence is good and all that kind of stuff. It's more complicated than just saying it's in this legal entity. So we added extra code to do all that smart stuff for you, so that when you say copy from company USMF, we find those number sequences and we fix all of the columns in that table to match the new legal entity for you. We do all that filtering for you. We do all that changing for you. We do all that work behind the scenes. So when you go to the new legal entity, you'll see your new number sequences set up with the correct legal entity, the correct scope values, and the reset to smallest value if you asked for it. That's what's going on. The filter, actually, if you look at the filter inside the form, it's pretty crazy up in here how that works. And so I wouldn't mess with it. It's programmatically set for you. See how it's automatically set, scope value set here, and then scope type is set to all the different scope types, and that's how we decide what to filter. But in the case of the filtering on copy company, I'd leave the filters alone if I were you. I mean, you can play around with them, but again, if you change the filters, you're changing what goes into the import file, and then when you import it and it doesn't work, it'll fail. So we apply the filter here. It is editable for you, but we're using existing functionality. We're not trying to hide anything behind the scenes. So we just want you to be able to touch it and see it. Are customized tables or fields included in this process, or do you need to create a new job for those customized tables? Custom tables, and so this is all entity based. If you have an entity and the entity can be exported and the entity can be imported, you can copy it. So if you guys are creating custom tables, custom features, especially ISV features or customizations, things where you're adding tables, as long as you have an entity that can export that table and import it correctly, you can copy it. So there's no limitation on that. It's all entity based. So we didn't put any limitations in there at all. So you know what I forgot to talk about limitations a little bit. You can't copy documents. You can't copy transactions. We didn't allow either one of those two. There's just a lot going on there. You can't copy workflow. I know that's probably a disappointment to everybody, but you can't copy workflow. It's a lot more complicated of a process. There's actually a way to export workflow and then re-import it in the new company. You can do that already, but it is not programmatic like this. It's a separate feature. So we didn't do workflow. We had a couple exceptions in intercompany. We're working on those right now. So some of the intercompany, there's 3 intercompany entities that won't work. Because the entity actually had a from and a to in it, and we need special code to fix that. So we're working on that right now. And that's pretty much the limitations of it. So if the entity is marked over here as a document, or in this column right here, as a document or a transaction, we won't let you do it. And it's for good reasons. We're not copying. You shouldn't be copying transactions over to a new company anyway. At least I don't think so, but that's why we limited it for you. So another question here. Is there any function that I can clean up the data from defined template and re-import to the company that I have the setup already? Well, this is copying to legal entity is just exports and imports. So you can always export, load up all the entities. And this is how we're creating demo data, frankly. We load up all the demo data and we fix it, and then we export it all back out again. Or we export it, we have it in a data package already. It's a zip file. Inside of a zip file, if you're not familiar with data packages, inside of a zip file, if you can see this on my screen, inside of a zip file is a manifest file, and that manifest file defines all of the entities that you are exporting or importing, defines the list, and then every one of the file entities that you're exporting or importing has a spreadsheet or an XML document or whatever you exported in that zip file. So and then the package header is just a minimum file. But my point is I can go into this zip file, unzip this thing. I can edit customer groups, change it to whatever I want, and then just re-zip it back up with the name, and I can edit my data and re-import it back in. So if you want to edit your stuff, what we do, for example, with the demo data is we export our demo data, we open up the zip file, put all the spreadsheets into a folder, we tweak our data, we fix it up, we fix mistakes, we change parameters, whatever we need to do, and then we just re-zip it back up into a data package, and then we import it. We get an empty system again, and we re-import it to test it out. So you can do that. You can do that through the spreadsheets. If you're talking about inside the application itself, we didn't change the there's the where you can edit the staging tables. We didn't change that. That's something that we've been talking about, looking at and stuff, but we didn't change that. You still can go in on a copy legal entity job. You still have the viewing the staging table, and then we added an underline right here so you can do it here as well. You still have this, and you still have the same editing that you have here. I know it can be better, but we didn't change that at all. Okay.
Auto sequencing is not available.
Is sequencing for custom entities available? So auto sequencing. There was a feature in the template. It's still there actually. There was a feature in the templates that was meant to auto sequence your entities for you. There is a bunch of metadata missing so far that we are not able to automatically do all these dependencies. And so what we would love to do is deliver all of our entities that automatically sequence all the time magically. There's a lot of issues around that that we have to update some of our entities. Also, there's combinations that are necessarily work one time, they don't work another. For example, if you have like a posting profile, and in your posting profile you use a customer or you use an all, that'll import pretty fast because you're not doing anything special. But if you're importing a table and it's got a customer ID in it, you have to have all your customers loaded first or it'll fail. So in that case, the sequence for customer for the posting profiles shouldn't go early, it should go late. So we can't guarantee even that automatically sequencing it would be right. On the other hand, if we did it, we'd get you close. So we are looking at that. It's something we have a lot of metadata that we'd have to update. A lot of the relations and the entities have to be fixed to make sure we can do that. And it still isn't 100%. So the question is whether or not we release something that's 90% and have to keep explaining it, or if we just go ahead and keep sequencing the templates for you. So the interim step is the templates. You got templates. I think we've sequenced 600 or 700 of the entities so far in those templates. And for now, we're just going to have to keep using those. Other questions? I'm looking here. Give you a minute here to post another question, then we're going to go ahead and we'll finish up here. Okay. Okay. Well, let me do this. Let me go back to the presentation. When you get this presentation, here's the links. The bottom one, copy configuration data from one instance to another. That talks about export, talks about import, talks about copy into legal entity. Read about that. We did a lot of work on explaining what entities have special circumstances, like make sure you filter on the legal entity, and we did a lot of work on making sure that you know any of the extra stuff about an entity that you need to know when you're exporting and importing it. The top of this form, you'll see where it says templates. Take a look at that. That is the documentation that really explains the sequencing. You can take any template that we've created, merge it with any other template we've created, and the sequencing will still stay correct, and everything will process in parallel instead of in series. So if you want to understand how we did that, if you're an ISV or a partner that is adding some custom stuff, read that first link and it'll explain to you exactly how we sequenced everything, how you can sequence it and make it work. And that'll explain kind of our methodology until we finally come up somehow with automatic sequencing. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, everybody, for attending. I really appreciate all the questions, and thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So folks, again, don't forget to take our survey. Grab that link, copy it, and paste it to a new browser. Your feedback is very valuable to us, and we would appreciate you taking a moment to fill it out. And with that, that does conclude today's partner web conference. The materials will be available at this same registration site within 24 hours. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Mike, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.